To begin, you're going to make sure your fusible is right side up. You're going to lay a ruler down the center of the diagonal and draw a straight line. From that center point, you're going to measure over 1 inch from the center and mark in several places. From that 1 inch point away from the center, you're going to take your ruler and connect those dots. So now you have a 1 inch line parallel to the center. You're going to take your first strip of fabric that you want to go right down the middle. This is a 2 inch wide strip, and it's going to be lined up with the edge lined up with that line 1 inch from the center. Your next piece is going to lay right sides together on top of that center piece. You'll pin along the edge and then trim off any of the extra fabric just to keep it out of the way. You'll go to your sewing machine and turn your machine to a 2. That's going to move your needle to the center position a little bit closer to the right edge of the foot. What we're looking for here is a 1/4 inch seam, 1/4 of an inch seam. So you'll lower your presser foot, lower your needle, and you're going to stitch forward about 3 stitches, reverse about 3 stitches to make that back stitch, and then you'll just keep the right side of that strip lined up with the right side of your foot throughout this whole entire project. You're going to stitch along with the right side lined up and pull pins out as you go. Make sure when you get to the end that you put in a few more back stitches to secure. Now you're going to open that up, what you just have sewn, finger press it really well, and make sure you don't have any creases or wrinkles, and take your next strip of fabric that you're ready for, right sides together along the raw edge, pin, and then again you're going to line it up with the right side of the foot and stitch along, pulling out the pins as you go. Make sure to back stitch at both ends. Keep an eye on your sewing machine to make sure that it's always on a 2 and that you're always using the right side of your foot as your guide so that you can keep the seam allowance the same. You repeat the process over and over until you've covered that entire half of your pillow form. Then you're going to start back from the center and repeat the pattern that you had created on the first side. So I'm looking for the fabric that was on the other side of my center, and I'm going to lay it right sides together, but now with my other raw edge that's 1 inch away from the center. On this half, I decided not to pin, so I'm just using my hands to line the fabric up as I sew. But depending on your experience level, you may want to continue to use pins yourself. We're going to add the next strip, right sides together. Always right sides touching or right sides together as you sew, keeping them nice and straight, lined up together, and then using that 1/4 inch seam. You'll repeat this process over and over just as you did on the other side until you get to the point where you have covered the entire piece of fusible fleece. This project is a really good practice in making 1/4 inch seams, and you're just doing a repetitive motion. So by the time you're done with it, you're really pretty good at sewing nice, straight 1/4 inch seams. Then we're going to take it to the iron and we're going to press it. After pressing it, you'll take it back to your spot and either turn it over to the wrong side and trim off the edge with your shears, or you can come up to the cutting table and use our safety rotary blade, line the metal edge up with the edge of your fusible fleece, and push down on the handle to cut. Now we're going to make the back half of our envelope pillow cover. You'll start by taking your finished pillow cover, lay it right sides together on your fabric, and then line the safety edge of the rotary blade up with the edge of the batting, and you'll cut it the width of your pillow. Your other option is just to have a piece of fabric and cut it 14 inches wide. You end up needing a piece that is in total 14 inches by 20 inches. So we can use scraps for this, but you'll want to make sure you choose a piece big enough. What I'm doing here is I am trimming off the selvage edge of the fabric. We want to just get outside the selvage and trim off any extra. We don't want to use the selvage for this project. So once I have my fabric squared off, I'm going to line it up with the 20-inch mark, and now I have that 14 by 20-inch piece. Then I'm going to cut a line down the middle at the 11-inch mark. So I have one piece that's 11 by 14, one that is 9 by 14. Then on the 14-inch edge, I'm going to press 3/8 of an inch down all the way across that 14-inch edge. And then I'm going to turn it over again, 3/8 of an inch, and press it again. This is a double turn. Just going to put a couple of pins in to hold it. Same thing on the other side, on the 14-inch across edge. I'm going to do that double turn, 3/8 of an inch, and then I'm ready to sew it. So back at your sewing machine, you're going to complete this step just like you did in seam sample 7 in our seam sample book. This is just a top stitch hem. So depending on where you have your machine set, at a 1 or a 2, you're going to be looking at various places on the foot. What I'm doing here is my needle is centered, so I'm lining the little plastic piece by the toe of your foot up with the edge that I'm sewing, and it spaces it about 1/8 of an inch. The key is to do it nice and close to that edge that you're trying to hold down. It should not be stitched on the top edge of the crease. It should be on the bottom crease that you're trying to hold down. So you'll want to make sure you stitch all the way across both pieces, doing that top stitch hem. Make sure to back stitch at both ends. And then I did a chain here where I was sewing one right after the next. So I have to go back and trim them apart because there's a stitch holding them together. Now we're going to take our pillow cover right side up and each of our back pieces right sides together, right sides touching with those double turned hems in the middle and the raw edges all on the outside. You're going to pin all around your pillow form, and then you're going to be sewing all the way around it on all 4 sides. You do not need to leave an opening because the opening is the envelope part on the back center of the pillow cover. So use the edge of your foot as your guide. You can either pivot at the corners or you can stitch all the way to the end and start a new seam each time and have your seams intersect. That is really up to you. Just make sure you sew all 4 sides and you get all the sides in. Now you're going to turn it right side out using that opening on the envelope cover. You'll take a closed pair of shears and poke out your corners so they're nice and pointy. And then once you have it where you think it looks really great, then you're going to take it to the iron and press it. This is really your last step before you turn it in. So to turn it in, you'll just put your scoring guide, slip it down in that back opening. And that's it. This just shows a couple of the other options you have for this Quilt As You Go project.